And folks that have been involved in the Sitecore community for a long time do remember that old marketplace where you actually had the zip file content packages that you had to download and install in your instance. And I mean, that was the Sitecore marketplace.
Yeah, it was
right?
a cool screenshot, I'll be honest. So as I mentioned, you guys have obviously kind of dabbled in this a little bit. You guys have created some apps. Anything worth mentioning in terms of like the apps that you guys have created? Any ones that you guys are most excited about?
I think Muhammad did like a very cool app for dam integration. He can
Nice.
mention that.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Sitecore Water Cooler, the casual conversation podcast dedicated to covering all things related to Sitecore, including product updates, implementation insights, getting the most out of your Sitecore investment, and more. I'm your co-host today, Maggie Burke, Sitecore Operations Director and Sitecore MVP at AmericanEagle.com. We are back. It's been a very busy summer, and we are officially in symposium season as we gear up and get ready for Sitecore's large annual conference hosted in Orlando this year. One thing that I am sure will be at the top of the list is hearing more about all of the exciting announcements that have been or will be released in the Sitecore ecosystem. An announcement I know our team is extremely excited about, developers especially, is the introduction of the Sitecore Marketplace. On today's episode, we will be meeting with multiple members from our Sitecore Architect team to hear all about the new Sitecore Marketplace that was released recently and how that is being adapted into the Sitecore community and our projects, as well as some of the information around the release of the Content SDK and what to expect. Ahmed, James, Alex, Mohammed, welcome to the Water Cooler.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Happy to have you guys back. It's been a minute. Like I mentioned, it's been a pretty busy summer. So we're happy to be back in the studio. And as I mentioned, Sitecore's got a lot of announcements that they've already kind of been teasing, been released, things that they've been talking about. And there's definitely going to be a lot of conversations that are going on in Symposium here in about a month and a half. So as we kind of talk about Sitecore Marketplace, I wanted to start with actually one topic that isn't necessarily related to Sitecore Marketplace, but is definitely top of mind, which is Content SDK. It's something that I feel like is, two words essentially that are kind of floating around the ecosystem, and a lot of clients that have either already made the move to XM Cloud or are in the midst of doing so or about to start really want to know just a little bit more information about what exactly it is. So going to kick it over to our chief architect, James Gregory, to kind of give us a little bit of an overview about what exactly is Content SDK, when was it released, kind of what should people be expecting around what it is actually.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, Content SDK rolled out mid-July, and then version 1.0. And then 1.0.1 was mid-August. What is it? It's a branch of the JSS headless library. So it's like if you're building a headless app on XM Cloud, you would have used JSS services for the SDK. The past years, they've been developing features specific to XM Cloud, a different way of integrating so that it's more performant. But the JSS library for XM Cloud had a lot of extra weight and baggage because it also had to handle the experience editor, which delayed releases because, hey, got this great new XM Cloud feature, but now we have to test it with experience editor, even though no one's, people in XM Cloud aren't using it. So it's kind of a necessity to split it out from JSS so that there's a difference between the XM on-prem headless and the XM Cloud headless. So that's kind of the nature of it. It has been a little bit of a bump in the road. There's some initial, hesitation I've seen where people are like, why do we have to change this? Everything's working fine. But you do get a lot of benefits from it. And the important thing is that the future roadmap, XM Cloud will only be using Content SDK in the future. Right now, it's backwards compatible. So those that are on the JSS SDK, it'll still function. But at some point, there's going to be a JSS release that comes out that the XM Cloud pages editor just won't honor.
Right.
So that's where Sitecore's kind of pushing everyone to switch over. It's a little bit of a bump in the road, but it's not a big deal. It's not a heavy effort.
Right.
I will say, like, if you've done a lot of extensions with the different Sitecore plugins or like custom client-side queries with the GraphQL client, you'll have a little more work to do than just find and replace. But it's still within the matter of a few days to get it through.
Right.
So not a huge concern. I also hear a lot of hesitation, like, 1.0, we should never use 1.0.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I get the sentiment, but this is code that was from the JSS headless library that they just renamed and then started tailoring. Any new XM Cloud feature will only go into that Content SDK going forward. So like one of them already is the design library improvements. That's only in the Content SDK. And as time progresses, there'll be more and more features that are only in the Content SDK. But there are a few considerations of when you switch, even though it's pretty easy to do. I'd say one of the key considerations is just how much activity is in your project right now. Like if you've got half a dozen developers actively programming and making daily commits, it's going to be a bit invasive to do the switch.
Right.
Or if you're coming up right to launch and you're about to launch, you probably don't want to do it right at that time. You probably want to find a time where you can have a little bit of a lull. You can have someone just kind of take a day to do the core switch and then give it to the team to continue developing off, just because it is a find and replace of all the import statements. So it touches every code file or almost every code file. And some files move around, so it's hard to merge it if people are actively working on all the files.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense because we obviously have, quite a few clients that either just went live with XM Cloud or they're about to, they're gearing up for launch here in a few weeks versus some clients that are just starting out. So I think it's a good note to make about the timing aspect of it. And I think it's also a good note to make too that it's not like the JSS stuff is going away like tomorrow or something like that, right? It's not being deprecated or anything right away. It's just that obviously the notion is feature enhancements and things like that are going to go into Content SDK. So it is probably in your best nature to move to that eventually, but it's a consideration to make of just planning it at the right time.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. And if you're early on the project, now's the time to do it just because any extension point is done differently. So it's worth switching over early. And it's also a better developer experience being on Content SDK. You get also little minor benefits like it's a smaller package, so you get performance improvements for your app too. But it is a better developer experience, and it's better to do sooner rather than later, but just being conscious of go live dates and not holding up the team.
Right. Exactly. Kind of being conscious of it again, it's not going away anytime soon. So it's not something that it's like, hey, if you're launching in 2 weeks, you got to make this switch now. Because obviously there's a lot of, testing and things involved that you want to make sure that things are working properly. But if you're early enough in the process, it's definitely worth just kind of putting that into the development plan as well. I know that there was talk about compatibility with Sitecore Search and stuff too. That seems to be something that they're going to be putting in a near release as well. So that's good. Anything in terms of just, I know you hit on a few, but any just helpful pros that come with Content SDK. Again, it sounds like obviously feature enhancement stuff is really going to be kind of put there. You kind of just mentioned performance, but anything else in terms of just like, hey, this is probably why it would be a good idea for development teams to consider making this move now rather than way later.
Yeah. One really key thing is for future updates to the SDK, the Content SDK is a lot easier to update. With the JSS, you have to do like a file comparison and kind of merge in changes, which is a little tedious. But because the Content SDK takes a lot of that internally, you just hit update on the NPI package. There's a less surface area to do the updates with. So it makes future updates a lot easier.
Great. Okay. And then just to reiterate, you kind of mentioned a little bit about like the timing and how long it might take, like roughly give or take, because I think that's probably what might cause some, weariness from teams, right? Is it's like, okay, we have to do this, but is this going to take us like 2 months to do? Is this going to take,
it's not an upgrade. No.
Right. Exactly. So anything in terms of just like relatively like how long something like this takes.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably knock out the code changes in a day, but you'd probably want to buffer it with a couple of days, just kind of iron out
testing.
But the bigger change really is now that we're shifting to React 19 with the latest versions, that can be a bigger change set. So if you're going from React 18 to React 19 on top of going to Content SDK, you might have to iron out some other library dependencies along the way. And I think that would take more time than the Content SDK switch itself.
Right.
But the Content SDK itself is very easy to switch over to.
But there is an approach if you move from older version on JSS to 22.7. I think that's when React updates to 15 or 19. So this way, you can just do that upgrade and verify all of your, packages and everything still works with React 19. And then the jump from there to Content SDK would be easier. So you can divide how you can tackle these different upgrades. So
yeah, that's a good point. There's even a decision and strategy too of, the steps laid out in the documentation, which there's very good, clear instructions for what changes and what you need to do. But, it recommends going step by step up each JSS update to a certain point and then switch over to Content SDK. So that's kind of the step-by-step approach. And I think that's most useful if you have a really rich, solution already with a lot of other integrations and other libraries where it'd be hard to recreate from scratch. That would be the approach to take. But if you're in a really new repo and you haven't done much to the boilerplate, it's probably easier just to start with a new boilerplate with the content SDK and then add in your component library.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. A good consideration to make when teams are kind of planning out making this move and stuff like that. And obviously, we're here to help in case anybody needs some kind of strategic approach around that. Great. Awesome. Thanks, James. I feel like that is, just something to kind of consider or think about when people are hearing content SDK and they're like, what is this? What does this mean? This and that. So it is appreciated to give kind of that overview and stuff there.
It's a little bump on the road, but nothing to fear.
For
and
sure.
It's for the better.
Exactly. It'll get you, it's, getting people to the latest and greatest, which is, what everybody wants these days. So makes sense. Okay. So then that kind of brings us into the exciting announcement around Sitecore Marketplace. And I think it was funny when we were doing some of our conversations before this that Mohammed, who's on right now, sent a picture of the kind of old XP Sitecore Marketplace from years ago. Because I was like, I feel like I remember that being mentioned kind of before, but now we obviously have the Sitecore Marketplace that was just introduced for XM Cloud and all the kind of SaaS products. So that being said, Alex, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what exactly is the Sitecore Marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of started with what I wanted to talk about, right?
Sorry, I steal your thunder a lot.
Which is where the Sitecore Marketplace came from, right?
Yeah.
And folks that have been involved in the Sitecore community for a long time do remember that old marketplace where you actually had the zip file content packages that you had to download and install in your instance. And I mean, that was the Sitecore Marketplace.
It was
right?
a cool screenshot, I'll be honest.
Yeah. So Sitecore launched the new XM Cloud Marketplace in August.
Yep.
And you can kind of think of it like an app store for your Sitecore portal apps, right? So
like what apps on your iPhone?
Yeah, kind of.
Cool.
Yeah. So Sitecore's allowing customers, partners, developers to build and host apps, right? That you can then use to extend your Sitecore products. So anything you can think of from translation tools, DAM connector tools, really anything that might enrich the Sitecore experience, you can use to build and host your own apps that can then be used on a variety of projects.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. And I think one of the things that was cool is you said, what was it, August that this was released?
I think so.
Or around then, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the first release was actually the private Sitecore Marketplace, correct? So what is the difference, I guess, between, because public is going to be upcoming. I think maybe they were talking about pre-symposium. If not, it'll be shortly after. But what is actually the difference between what's live now, the private marketplace, versus what the public marketplace is going to be?
Yep. Ahmed, do you want to take this? Do you want me to take it?
Yeah. So the private marketplace is basically like you can build your marketplace application. You can host it on any XM Cloud instance that you have for you or for clients. And you have to define which organization and which environment that you want to install this. So it's not available for anyone on the public to use your application. So this is basically like you're building an application that you want to use on multiple different organization. You can configure that from the Sitecore XM Cloud portal. The public is meant for public submissions for different marketplace. Think about if someone has an idea and they want to share it across for everyone to use, they can publish their marketplace application on the public platform, and it can be available for anyone. Just to note, if you publish it, whether it's private or public, you still have to host it yourself. So some of the ones, the Sitecore Marketplace is not a place to host your application. It's just a place where you can define your application and make it available for the XM Cloud instances to use it with. That's the main difference.
So just to clarify on that point, Ahmed, if you wanted to build an app and you wanted to put it in the public store, right now it's not released yet, but when the time comes, you would actually be responsible for hosting that yourself, and then everybody that uses your app would rely on your hosting.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I've asked this for Sitecore team websites. We were on a call. It's hey, just so that everyone knows, for the public release, is this going to be something that you're going to host or us? Yeah. And the answer was no, it's all on whoever's making the application. So.
Okay, interesting. And that's always good too, because we get to meet with all of Sitecore's product teams.
It's different than other
nice.
plugins platforms out there, Figma, they host it themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay, interesting. Well, that's good to know. And then I guess just think about the private one. So if you guys are creating an app on, and then you put it in the private marketplace, if we have customers, clients, anybody that has their own XM Cloud instance and things like that, we can push that app to their instance, right? So that's kind of where it becomes nice too, because anything that like we want to push to a certain client's instance or things like that, we're able to do when we create these in the private market.
Yeah, and this is the nice thing about the marketplace. Like, like traditionally, like when we build the module within our, Sitecore projects, usually the code lives within the same code repository. And like if we want to share that with across different projects, we have to copy the code, make sure like whoever's copying understand like what everything goes, and then they have to like make the configuration on their Sitecore. But this makes it like, you build it once and then you reuse it, publish it like to any organization that you want.
Okay, interesting. Because that was actually going to be one of my questions was, so like where does the code actually live and how does it get maintained? So it sounds like it's in one spot. You're not having
it's in one spot. It has its own URL. You can host it the way that you want. From technology stack that you can have it React or Next.js. It's a TypeScript base, so like it works with anything that works with TypeScript. But Sitecore been pushing examples in React and Next.js so far, but really it's up to you. Like if you can host it anywhere you want. This can be something that we can host or like with Vercel or Netlify or anywhere, but it's on you to like maintain that.
You gotta maintain it.
Yeah, but it's much easier, like because you build it once, verify it's working, and then like it's XM Cloud, it's a SaaS product. Everyone's gonna have the same Sitecore instance,
right?
So like it can work on any XM Cloud instance as well.
Very nice, very nice.
Can I add one thing here, guys?
Nope.
Yeah. We were discussing like how we or where the code gonna live for the custom you create, and actually there are like some flexibility there because you can have like a separate repo for your app, or you can include it in the same website repo. So you have the flexibility there. So if you don't want to like manage a separate repo and a separate URL for your app, you can just host it inside your solution code for your website or for your front-end application. So there is a flexibility there, how you want to manage that.
Yeah, like what Mohammed's saying is like the code itself can still live within like your XM Cloud repo if you want that option. And like then like it can have its own page, and then you can, from the marketplace, you can configure your application to just point to that page. But I mean, I don't know, like if you want to use it across different sites, then it might be a good idea just to have it in a separate repo, like multiple, and then like you can host it separately, and then whoever wants to use it from the organization or like our clients, we can just configure that in less than a minute.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like there's definitely a few different approaches. You're not pigeonholed into one, but it's just being, again, strategic about actually planning that out and making sure that, what does that maintenance plan actually look like and how does it get, and that's what would come into play in terms of where you want the code to live. So that makes sense.
And one more thing, sorry, because
one more,
because
and another one.
So like probably one of the most popular like marketplace platform is like Figma, and they have a lot of like plugins. And I've been working with their plugin system for the JSS Copilot, and it's just like the difference between how you build the Figma plugin and a Sitecore XM Cloud like marketplace is just so big. Like it's so easier to do it with XM Cloud than any other like plugin platform out there. It just like they have so many restrictions on Figma that like almost on a Sitecore example, like marketplace, they have nothing. You can build anything. There are few things, but like it's super like flexible, and like you have a lot of freedom to build things.
Well, that actually is a good lead-in question, because I want to know, you guys have obviously done a few. I've seen on LinkedIn, and things like that, and obviously from our water cooler chats and whatever in the office. But you guys have created some apps that you guys have put into the marketplace. So can one of you tell me a little bit about just, if you came up with an idea, like how does one start with creating an app in the Sitecore marketplace?
So first you need to understand like your idea is like, is that like something I can execute within the marketplace, like available like functionality. So for example, you and I were talking this morning about the site wizard that Sitecore has on XM Cloud. And the current Sitecore wizard doesn't allow you to add like your own custom like options or inputs or things to select from. It has a specific different feeds that you can select from. And we were talking in the morning. I was like, I think we can build something better than that.
Yeah, I was like, but Ahmed, I want to do this and I want to check this.
Yeah, and Maggie's like sending me like 10, 20 different requirements. Like, okay, I think we're going to have to try a marketplace for this.
That's what I do to most of you guys. I'll just send new requirements and be like, I'll just wait till they tell me now.
So yeah, I went to the marketplace repo and just went through like all of the available like methods and APIs, and I was able to find all of the things that we needed to create a site wizard exactly like we wanted it. And I think Sitecore originally like built all of these like, you know, the site wizard probably was built on the same APIs that the marketplace is, you know, is working on, because like that was like they're trying to build applications on top of like XM Cloud. Using the same marketplace API. So that's why, like, when I was going through the API, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. This is why the site wizard is built this way, because these are. But you can extend it if you're building your own like site wizard using marketplace. Like you can add whatever, you know, options that you want. You can allow the user to select things like, you know, that, you know, you cannot do that now. So that's one idea.
No, that's great. And like I said, this is news to me that it all is going to come to fruition. So I love it.
Yeah, inspired by Maggie.
Yeah, right. We'll put my name on it. But no, that's great. And I think that just speaks to the fact that, yes, there are some things that come with XM Cloud, but this marketplace is allowing for that kind of creativity, innovation, being able to extend things, which I think is really just going to be a playground for a lot of developers and things like that, within guardrails, of course. But, you know, so we obviously talked a little bit about content SDK, but it sounds like there's marketplace SDK as well. So Mohammed, can you give us a little bit of an intake on what that actually is, and maybe just how people can kind of get started then when it comes to creating an app?
Sure. Yeah. So within the Sitecore documentation, like you can find that all the steps that you need to start your own custom app. But if you don't want to start like from scratch, Sitecore already prepared like a starter kit that exists currently on GitHub, so you can probably clone it, fork it, and start a couple steps ahead. Also, with the marketplace, with Sitecore Marketplace, Sitecore also introduced the Marketplace SDK, which is an open source open source marketplace SDK that you can use to build your apps. It has basically like two functions or two goals. Basically, it manages the interaction between your app and Sitecore, and also manage the interaction with the Sitecore product APIs. That's pretty much what I wanted to mention about the SDK and the start kit.
Okay, great. So it does sound like there's a good kind of lead in. So if I do wake up in the middle of the night and have a brand new idea, there's the starter kit to go off of. So that's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, and along with your idea too, you also need to consider what type of integration you want.
Right.
Because when you create your app, you've got multiple options. So you can decide, do you want a standalone app, right? That's going to open in a brand new tab and can do whatever you want to do with it. Do you want one that's built into Pages Editor, right? Maybe you need something inline to help your authors translate text or pull fields from a DAM, right? Okay. And then you've also got a custom field too that you can use.
Okay. So yeah, so it does sound like there's kind of different types to choose from, and then that's kind of where your starting gate goes from. So, okay, that makes sense. So as I mentioned, you guys have obviously kind of dabbled in this a little bit. You guys have created some apps. Anything worth mentioning in terms of like the apps that you guys have created? Any ones that you guys are most excited about?
I think Mohammed did like a very cool like app for DAM integration. He can mention that.
Yeah, for one of our clients, we needed a custom field where a user can choose an image from LithoDAM. So we wanted to give the content author the ability to select either like a Sitecore Media Library image or maybe an external image from LithoDAM. So we used what we call a custom field extension point in the new Marketplace app. We built a separate like Next.js app basically that used the Litho API to pull assets or images from Litho, display it on a grid, and then the content author can use keyword search maybe if needed to find the asset and then select that one and being displayed on the component.
Nice.
So that was wonderful.
And it's displayed on the component, like on a component in XM Cloud then?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. And then just asking some questions on it, because that sounds really cool. What if they wanted to use a different DAM? Because obviously, like, you know, Sitecore has their Content Hub stuff, which already has kind of that innate in there. But there's going to be other clients that, already have an in-house digital asset management and, but they're going to be using like XM Cloud and things like that. Would your app be something that could be extended to use for different, products as well? Okay.
As long as the other DAM has an API to pull assets from there and basically provide URLs for these assets, then yes, we can integrate with that.
Awesome. That sounds very cool, actually. Great. Any other ones? I know that you guys I've seen a lot of rocket ship launches on LinkedIn. You guys using API or AI to write your LinkedIn posts?
So like one of the things that you always like run into with XM Cloud, like you publish a page and like it's not looking good.
Yeah.
The front end as well. So like we created an app that can show you the difference between the preview version and the published version. So this way, like sometimes like there is a reference item or a related item that you haven't published. So you can from that application on the page itself, you can say, okay, on this page, why am I not seeing this button even though I published this page? So you can see exactly what's the difference between the published and unpublished versions from the pages builder within this XM Cloud application.
Very cool. That sounds very helpful. Awesome. Any other apps or anything that you guys have created or maybe have ideas to create that are worth mentioning? Well, actually, maybe don't mention the ones that you're thinking about creating. Someone might take those.
I mean, like, look, it's endless. Like anything that like we've built previously, we can just like import or export to XM Cloud. Like any modules that you have previously built for specific clients, or that can be translated into XM Cloud Marketplace application. Like one of the most popular ideas are translation services. So
that was the first thing that we did.
I'm sure we're gonna see like tens of these.
I'm sure there'll be a lot. Yeah, this is going to be dangerous. Now I'm going to have ideas and then I'm just going to be bothering you guys as if you don't have enough on your plates. I'll be like, hey, wait. I have another one. So no, that's awesome. Well, this all sounds extremely exciting. I think the introduction of Sitecore Marketplace, and I know that they had talked about it at Symposium last year, but now seeing it kind of come to fruition and people can actually kind of use it and things like that, I think is very exciting as a lead-in into Symposium. And I'm sure there's going to be sessions and things that talk about it a bit more. But as a kind of final wrap-up question for you guys as we talk through these details is, if you could really think about it, like how does the introduction of Sitecore Marketplace really benefit the Sitecore community? Again, not just the, marketers and things like that in the Sitecore community, but even just like excitement from the development community and stuff like that. Is there anything you guys can kind of encapsulate for what the introduction of Sitecore Marketplace might do in terms of benefits for the Sitecore community?
I think it invigorates it.
Yeah. A couple of things, right? One, it creates a sense of community.
Yeah.
Right. So it kind of gives you pulls everybody back. And it's like, okay, how can I develop something to help the community? Right. And two, from the customer perspective, it kind of addresses that age-old question of how do we start getting custom code back into XM Cloud, right? That was a big thing moving to XM Cloud. Oh, sorry, if you have any custom integrations or custom access points within your Sitecore instance, we need to kind of rethink that going to XM Cloud, right? Mm-hmm. And now with the marketplace, that opens up the ability to do these kind of things.
Yeah. Again, I think it just reintroduces that creativity aspect. Yeah. Again, it lets people know that it's like, hey, making the move to XM Cloud is definitely kind of future forward. But again, it allows for, to your point, there's the ability to extend things and be creative and come up with ideas. And like I said, bother your architects to create all the fancy ideas that you come up with. But to your point too, I think it really helps with building that bigger sense of community again. Sitecore's always been really good about really kind of putting a lot into the community space within all the different team members, whether you're at different agencies, clients, whatever it is. And this kind of allows for, hey, I created this and, take a look at this or take a look at, different kind of extensions and letting people kind of talk through things and whatnot and see all the cool things that get created. So I think while it's only the private application in Sitecore Marketplace now, I think once it goes to the public one, it's going to be very exciting too. So
it's also ideas for Sitecore too, right?
Oh yeah.
It gives Sitecore a lot to go off of and say, hey, what's out there? What's working?
Absolutely.
Right? What are people looking for and what can we actually bake into the product?
Correct. That's a really good point because I think, I made the comment earlier about how the, accessibility into meeting with their product teams has been such a huge benefit over the years when it comes to kind of these new product lines that they've released in the last few years for their SaaS products and being able to kind of give feedback and things like that to their product teams. But then to your point now with the marketplace, things can be created that Sitecore's own product teams can kind of see and say, wow, this is really cool. Maybe we should actually just put this into the product stack itself. So I think that's actually a very good point as well. So all right. Well, Ahmed, Alex, Mohammed, James, thank you guys for joining us at the Sitecore Water Cooler today. I look forward to collaborating with you guys more in the future, bothering you guys with all of my wonderful ideas for the marketplace. And we hope to have you guys back on the water cooler again soon. Thanks for listening to the Sitecore Water Cooler podcast. Find out more information about AmericanEagle.com Sitecore services and today's topic in the description below. This episode is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. I'm your host, Maggie Burke, and special thanks to our executive producers, Renee Nelson, Julia Klepich, and Brian Winger.